So first things first, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, I'm fine. I've been flying today, so I'm a little bit exhausted by the flight, but apart from that, I am totally okay. Yeah.
Well, before we talk about your new album, I'd like to go back to the beginning a little bit. Your father was a musician and an artist. Do you have one musical memory of what he was doing when you were growing up?
Yeah, I have a couple of memories, but I think one in particular is him during one of his concerts, or it was more. I think it was more of a performance maybe rather than a traditional concert. But me and my sister, we would. When he lived in Gothenburg, we used to kind of follow him around and just play around wherever he was playing a concert. But I remember one time where I got a little bit worried and scared because he was doing a performance together with Leif Elgren where they sealed themselves in a bathtub for I don't know for how long, but then it was water in the bathtub, and then they would go into the bathtub, and then they would put what's it called? Just a play like a block or something, right. Yeah, on top of the bathtub, and then they had poured like gasoline around the bathtub, and then someone lit the match and it would start to burn. And the only thing I saw was my dad getting into a bathtub, being sealed within the bathtub, and then someone lit this bathtub on fire. Okay. So I remember that I was a little bit worried that he might not come out from the bathtub. But I don't remember any sound. Okay. But yeah. That was an artistic experience filled with fear.
Well, like you say, because it is, especially for a child, I don't know how old you were, but those kind of things to be surrounded, it must be a lot of impulses everywhere. So when did it develop in you to start doing something artistically as well?
Well, I don't know. Because I've been surrounded by a lot of creative people, making art has felt quite natural for me. But my dad moved to Stockholm, and then he had a label in Gothenburg, and they closed down. So then me and my sister, we didn't participate as much that we used to do when we were really, really small in all of his art events. So I think we found our way into the art in a more like traditional manner, singing in choirs and I went to music high school, and kind of it feels like I started from there. But yeah.
Was your mother musical?
She's a psychologist, okay. But she, I mean, she loves music and she loves art, so yeah.
So there was always some music playing in the background.
Yeah, all the time. It was a part of my everyday life.
Do you remember maybe one or two artists that kind of came back every time?
Yeah, Tarkovsky.
Okay.
We would always play Tchaikovsky in the springtime and eating waffles. We have a waffle day in Sweden. So Tarkovsky was one, and then my mom would play a lot of Bob Dylan. Okay. But we had a lot of records at home, and I think Nick Cave as well, and yeah, Bob Marley, okay. As well, a little bit.
But
But Tarkovsky is like it always came back the same month every year, waffle day.
It sounds like a great holiday.
Mm-hmm.
But so you say you started in high school, kind of developing this musical ear. Did you write songs by then?
Yes, I think I wrote my first song on the piano when I was 15 years old, and but I kept it to myself. And
if you look back at that song, and I don't know if you still have a recording, but can you hear certain things that you are doing now?
Yeah, I can. I remember some of the songs. Really embarrassing, really embarrassing texts.
But could you see what you wanted to do already? If you go back to the music? Or is it completely different?
No, but in some ways I think I'm not so far away from where I was when I was maybe 15 or 16 years old. By then I was studying classic music on the piano, so a lot of that music inspired me. So I took a lot of elements coming from the classic music scene and blend it into my more simple pop structures. Mm-hmm. And I think that's maybe a little bit what I do today, although I might not be as inspired by the classic traditional music that I was back then.
If we look at your new album, is there a song where you can find this, where a certain classical element is still there? Or maybe another element, like you say, it's not that much classical anymore?
I think maybe on Discovery you can hear a little bit in how I play the organ notes. Mm-hmm. But that I would say that maybe that's more inspired by classic minimalism. Repetition and dramatic gestures.
Because you mentioned the word dramatic. Let me start with this. Do you see the album as a concept album?
As a concept album?
Yeah.
In one way, yes, because I had an idea and I wanted to write a record about a place, and I wanted to capture my perception of that place and translate it into music. But for me, it's a very emotional album, and it's coming from a very personal place. So it's emotionally written, but also conceptually made because of the theme.
When did you decide that you wanted to write about this place, about this theme?
I decided in 2013 I read this book called Källan by Walter Ljungquist, and I got a mission from Mike Harding at Touch to write an instrumental pipe organ piece for one of his arrangements that he was doing at Lincoln Cathedral in England. And then I got this mission from him, and I read this book, and I felt so taken by this book once I read it, and also during reading it. So I decided to kind of make a piece about that book. So I made Källan, and which was also performed at Lincoln and then released as Källan prototype on Touch. But that piece is heavily inspired by the book. But what happened to me while I was reading the book, it made me think of a place that I know that was similar to the place that Walter Ljungquist is describing in his Källan. So I just I just started a lot of memories started to get back to me, and I started to romanticize about my own place and remember a lot of things about this place, and make connections to the kids in the book, to my childhood at this place. And I just connected on a very personal level to the things that Walter Ljungquist was writing about. And when I was finished writing Källan, I felt that there was so much more that I could say, not particularly about the book, but about the miraculous place and why I'm so fascinated by it and why I'm so drawn to it. So yeah, it's just, I wanted to make a record about that place.
Well, this miraculous place, what kind of place is it? Can you describe it a little bit, or it is an existing place?
Yeah, it's a physical place in Sweden, okay. And I used to spend a lot of childhood summers or vacations there, also winters, and it was like a gathering place for me and my family. So it's a real place.
So since making this album, have you gone back to that place?
Yeah, I mean, during mixing and during the mastering, I've been there. I go there frequently.
Oh, so it's fairly close
to Copenhagen.
Okay.
I live in Copenhagen.
Okay.
No, I mean I don't want to get into geography. I don't want to.
Fair enough.
But it is. Yeah.
Is your memory of that place the same as it, or when you went there, was it the same as your memory of that place?
It's a little bit different. I think what fascinates me about this place is all the stories and images that I carry from my childhood. So when I come to the miraculous place today, I have all these images that I apply to the nature, and I go there and I see the history present itself to me when I go there. So it's yeah.
What was the first song then that you started to write after coming up with that idea and thinking, okay, this is what I want to do?
I mean, I think Källan was probably the first song, but that led me into the Miraculous. And then I played a cover, Come Wander With Me, Deliverance, it's a medley, for 1 or 2 years. But that cover, when I started playing it, I didn't know that it was going to be a part of the Miraculous record. I just thought it was fitting to it had a place in the record. But the first song, I mean, I think maybe it was Discovery.
Okay.
But I'm not so sure.